in the later part of the presentation. So before we start, I have a Nilesh, can you just poll a question, please?
Yeah. What CMMS software do you currently use? Please select all that apply: SAP PM, Maximo, Info Data Stream, Oracle, or any other. We are still receiving the polls.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, right. We are done with this. We have 80% using Maximo and 20% using SAP PM.
Okay, great, great. So, all right. So all of you probably use some high-level tools already for managing your maintenance. All right. So, based on what we have seen in the industry, these are general challenges, and these are no way a list of all challenges. But really, at a very high level, there are different personas within the organization, whether it's executive leadership or managers or engineering or project teams, or you may have staff floor at the staff floor level. And then, of course, all maintenance activities in most companies, especially manufacturing-oriented companies, are also directly and indirectly are interacting with production people. So we have seen different people have different objectives, different goals, different ways of handling things. And most of the times we have seen ensuring plant level uptime, quality, and throughput are one of the most important elements that everybody is working towards. Then, of course, cost is another element where we want to optimize the total cost of asset ownership and spare parts inventory that we carry, the asset base itself, ROI on that. And then, depending on the type of business, there are always constraints in the business, and one has to look at the maintenance policies along with the other constraints that they may have, whether it's related to production, supply chain, labor, other resources, whatever might be the case. Also, maintenance strategies overall should be aligned with the business goals or business strategy at large, depending on the type of business one is, and how do you actually ensure that the maintenance activities are aligned. Then we have seen strategic planning and budgeting as another challenge, whether it's annual budget or kind of keeping up with the day-to-day issues, and then any new initiatives that one might like to embark on. So managing budget and linking it with the financial system is also of importance, and it's a very big challenge. Risks are always there related to safety, health, environment, and complying with the risk. And in many cases, safety is such an important aspect that it's many a times ties with the level of assets performance, as well as the maintenance practices and safety practices that one has, and how do you link it all together. And overall, we would like to understand what the gaps are in performance, understand what are the systemic problems are, and what are the trends on these type of problems, and get some alerts, get some exceptions that can be identified, or outliers can be identified, which can help in monitoring these exceptions. So one can devise a strategy to handle these exceptions, and in the process you can actually improve processes or improve your systems and overall people's preparedness. And most of the time, most of the companies have some sort of strategy in place, and they all are looking, they are trying to execute on that strategy, and everybody's looking for operational efficiency. So these are the basic high-level challenges we have seen, and most of the time companies have few or one or more of these, and they want to figure out how they can get the data to help them. So before I go further, Nilesh, there's another question.
Yeah, what reporting data analysis software do you primarily use for your CMMS? Is it BERT, Cognos, SAP BW, Crystal BO, or other? The poll is in progress. Please wait. Yeah, so the poll is over. 40% use BERT, 30% use Crystal, and 30% use other tools.
All right. Good. So there are other challenges also. There is a large amount of data from multiple sources which are related to assets. It could be ERP, it could be some condition monitoring, it could be other PDM programs, or it could be just instrument data. So there is a lot of data that is getting created. Most of the modern equipment has a lot of ways of collecting data. There are multiple data points from which data is collected. And how do you all relate to that? So the volume of data is alone is one of the very big challenge, and these are all disparate systems from where the data is coming through, and how do you bring it all together? A product like Maximo will give you, as an SAP, will give you limited KPIs. Then technical skills is another issue most of the organizations face. Data model itself can be very complex, and there are some facilities are provided by the CMMS software like SAP or Maximo, but it may not be sufficient. So we all struggle with leveraging this data. So this is one of the bigger issues that most of the organizations are facing. So before I go, question 3, please.
Yeah. Please rate quality and integrity of your CMMS data in terms of accuracy, consistency, and completeness. Is it very good, good, poor, or very poor? Yeah, so we have the results here. 50% have good quality and integrity of their data, 30% have poor quality, and 40% have very poor quality.
All right. Okay, so if in order for us to see how data can be leveraged to manage performance, really there are many ways data can assist, and one of the biggest thing is one can get an holistic view across multiple functions, so which could be coming from SAP PM or from Maximo or some other ERPs that one has. The supporting analysis, in order to build EAM strategies, execution of the strategic action plan, and monitoring of outcomes, one needs analysis to arrive at that. And then, of course, we all want to better align maintenance resources with the business goals, whatever might be the objectives that one has. And then identifying process bottlenecks and the areas of improvement. That's where data analysis can be of greater assistance. Once you define your goals, based on the goals, one can define the key performance indicators, and then also have a related lagging and leading indicators or some sort of relationship. And we'll look at some of the examples, but that's where really data analysis can be of great help. In an organization, when there are multiple similar type of units or similar type of production facilities or manufacturing facilities or any kind of similarities where you can actually, similar functions where you can do benchmarking and understand and highlight the best practices, so the other functions can also adopt these best practices. Another most important thing that we have seen how data analysis can help is really, and to define these KPIs, really to communicate with the workforce, is to ensure that the workforce understands the company's goals and how they link to their individual's work and how their activities can really impact the business goals. And the data presentation or displaying of these type of KPIs can be of great assistance. When somebody is monitoring this performance, one can identify outliers, identify degradation in performance, and kind of create alerts based on that. And in the end, really, we all are looking to identify ways we can influence right behavior. So we have, so that everybody is working towards a common goal. Most of the time, decision-making process itself, the quality and the relevancy of decisions can be improved with the assistance of data analysis. And experience will obviously play a lot of role, where experience and expertise can actually help individuals to look at this data and can really support their decisions. And then, of course, in the end, we all want to optimize the financial performance while balancing asset health and as well as the risk associated with safety, health, and environment. So the value of really data analysis is, as we all mature and as we all see a little bit more sophistication in most of the polling, 50% people have good data. Once you have a good data, then hopefully you can convert that raw data into information which can really give you insight to make better decisions. So, and as you progress in the journey, as you become a little bit more mature, eventual goal is to really do optimization of maintenance activities and align with the business. So all the efforts, all the resources that are put in, you get better results. So before we go further, I have another polling question.
Yeah. How will you rate your current set of KPIs for measuring asset performance? Is it very good, it is good, poor, or very poor? We have done results here. 56% say they have poor rate. They have rated poor to their KPIs for measuring asset performance. 22% have rated good. 11% have rated very good and very poor.
All right. So most of us are in the middle of I would say very good and very poor. So I think the KPIs themselves will evolve, and we'll discuss a little bit more. But why do we rely less in case we are not using the KPIs and the data that is collected? Why are we? So these are some of the things we have identified or noticed in many organizations. Most of the time, users lack knowledge of how data can be leveraged. And sometimes IT has limitations. They know the tools, but there's no correlationship how the data can be presented with or displayed or visualized by the end user so that they can really make use of it. And there's a disconnect between IT and the end users. Maximo or system like Maximo or SAP may not have been fully matured in the organization. So that the functionality might be limited, or in some cases very minimal functionality. So obviously that doesn't lend itself to better use of the data. Poor data quality, that is one thing we have seen time and again with most of the companies. Accuracy, consistency, failure codes, asset hierarchy, location hierarchy, some of those things are not well configured, and some data entry issues, some practices, the culture in the company kind of doesn't lend itself. So it ends up you collecting a lot of poor data or data that is kind of marginally trustworthy. So since you don't trust the data, you don't trust the analysis itself, and that kind of it becomes a vicious cycle. Some companies don't have any taxonomy, standardization of measurements, so that is another. So there's no apples to apples comparison in some cases, or the language, the dictionary that is used to discuss these type of measurements are not standardized. So that doesn't help, especially in the larger organizations. So some of the systems, whether SAP, Maximo, there are ways some of the things needs to be standardized, whether it is failure codes, whether work order types, or what is considered as predictive work order. Those type of things can help further analyze the data. Many times maintenance group is other priorities, and there are other initiatives that are happening in the company, and there are other options that may get more priority than getting data analysis projects. And sometimes the data analysis projects are not properly perceived, and hence the budgets are not properly allocated for such an effort. We have seen we invest millions of dollars in SAP and Maximo or any other CMMS system, and there are billions of dollars worth of assets, but these incremental investment in analytics can really give you a return on the, not only on the CMMS, but also the overall investment made in the asset. So sometimes that is not perceived, or it is not communicated correctly with the leadership, and that really doesn't help in initiating a data analysis type of projects. And overall, there is a lack of culture of making data-driven decisions. Most of the people are rely on their judgment, their experience, number of years that they have worked in that same plant or same facility, and they really, in most cases, they probably have all the necessary knowledge, but data analysis can really help supplement that effort, as well as some of these people might retire, and they will their knowledge will go with them. So it's we have seen the culture is such a big issue in adopting to data analysis as such. The other one is really the leadership is not insisting on adopting data analysis as a management tool. It should be one of the toolkit to help better manage your maintenance. So it's a combination of things that really why people don't rely. The positive side is some of these things can be fixed over time. Some of things can be fixed in a short time. So there are some low-hanging fruits that that people can leverage on. So what we have seen in most of, whether it is SAP or whether it is Maximo, they provide some basic operational reports, some KPIs, some basic dashboard, but it's not a comprehensive by any means supporting all different types of information that is required. So there is always a gap that we have seen, whether it's metrics, scorecards, OLAP, any kind of ad hoc type of reporting, statistical analysis. In some cases, it will make a lot of sense to predict or understand the deviations, whether we are doing standard deviation type of analysis, Six Sigma type of analysis. And as you go higher up in the organization, they all are looking for more concise, more summarized view, and they are looking for to really manage multiple functions. So they want to focus on only few KPIs, and they just it's standardized, and they want to monitor the results. So these gaps really lead. So Maximo SAP are basically transaction application. They collect data and they provide some basic reporting, but they lack all these other aspects. And as the data sizes are increasing, then there is an island of silos, and it's kind of information is there are application-specific reporting, and that leads to one system is not talking to another system, whether it's ERP or CMMS system or any other monitoring system or any other PDM or any other PI system or some other system that really are linked with the assets are not talking with each other. So hence the deep analysis, ad hoc analysis is not possible, and it's very cumbersome. And it is also sometimes there is too much information, and it can clutter the overall landscape. And so it's very important to identify what is important, how to limit the number of KPIs or limit the number of dashboards, and have a way to actually get a view where you can focus on certain important aspects, and then kind of get to the details of it as and when required. Once the management system, the performances, once starts monitoring, then there has to be a way to actually feedback loop where if you take any action, did it really help in improving the KPI or improving the particular situation. So that feedback is also missing in most of the in CMMS systems. And really, essentially, we are not getting a holistic view, and hence it doesn't really help with the comprehensive EM data analysis strategy. So before we go, there's a question, another polling question, please.
Please rate usefulness of measuring OEE in your environment. Very good, good, poor, very poor, or it is not applicable. Okay, so we have the results here. 40% say they have good usefulness of measuring OEE in their environment. I think it's now 38% say it's good, 19% say very good, 19% say poor, and 25% are not applicable.
Okay. Yeah, OEE is a very interesting measurement. Has advantages, but its practical implementation can be difficult depending on the company's situation. But in general, when we look at plant asset management or any kind of asset management, there are 4 groups. In some companies could be 3 groups, but really operations, people who actually make use of the equipment, piece of equipment, engineering people who actually put them in place in the first time, or the ongoing design or any kind of changes, etc. So, and then obviously the maintenance and the reliability people. So we all touch this. Most of us, the fact that I think in the polling, most of you all are using SAP or Maximo. So obviously we have systems in place, the processes are set, and it's believed that the people are also trained on this and are using it, and potentially we might be getting good results. So really where the analytics framework can really help is to really how do you go from getting good results, so how do you transform the organization from good to great, or how do you go from good to world class? And analytics can be an interesting additional tool or an additional wheel that can really leverage whatever the data that one is getting. It will consolidate the systems. You can better use the systems, improve your processes, and really improve your people's ability to interact with systems processes. And analytics can then eventually help you get world-class results. And there are many ways of thinking. There is strategies, there are different options, but analytics can be a very easy, because you have already invested money into systems and processes, and people are also trained. So it's a question of adding incrementally. It's a small, relatively small effort to get considerably high return on that effort. So how do you really get asset value realization? When we say asset value realization, is you have invested a lot of money into physical assets, you have a lot of spare parts inventory, there's a lot of people who are running these or maintaining these assets. So by and large, depending on the purpose of, depending on the organization, but most manufacturing organization will look at increasing productivity or any type of increasing basic productivity, reduce cost, mitigate your EHS risk, and really improve your products and your service quality, whether it's to internal customers or external customers. And we can slice this in many, many different ways, but essentially most of our maintenance and reliability activities are around these elements, because in the end it has to help the business, and business is impacted in all these 4 different ways as an example, and there could be some other ways of measurement also, but we have seen some of these very, very important pieces, and some might be more important than the other, but the idea is to limit and kind of create a view where you get a consolidated. Most of these might be lagging indicators, and then there will be related leading indicators, which are mostly action-oriented and your execution itself. So most companies, we have in some other organizations, maybe it might be viewed in a different way. Maybe you will focus on throughput and productivity, financials on a bigger financial picture, ROI, return on your asset investment, total cost of asset ownership, your maintenance budget. There could be different ways you might handle. But essentially, you can actually look at asset performance into these 5 big buckets, because they all will influence your profit and loss account statement in some way or the other. And only the organization preparedness and maturity may not directly reflect in the balance sheet or profit and loss account, but really that becomes a very, very important aspect in overall asset performance. And every company will look at it a little bit differently. OEE, some of the OEE components are part of this. So OEE is a good measurement for companies which really have good data and follow on collecting good data. It's a difficult proposition to collect good data, but some components of OEE can be adopted. Even if you don't have a formal OEE type of measurement, you can actually look at some of the components and link it with these overall goals. So how do you go about doing that? So you might have some goals. Just as an example, some of these goals may be one of the 5 buckets, or it could be very focused on some local activities, or maybe focused on some individual role that you are trying to work with. Based on the goals, you will have some strategy in place, or it could be some of these methodologies, or it could be your own company's own strategy. And Maximo or SAP can be used for managing all these different functions. You also have multiple other data sources that you might like to, which are related to asset. And then there is a way you can actually bring it all together. This could be in the form of physically bringing all the data sources together, or it could be just logical. So you have different ways of connecting to different data sources at your end. And then once you ensure the quality is good, the integrity, and there is a way to bring it all together, there is some sort of connectivity between the applications, then you have an opportunity to build metrics, alerts, scorecards, dashboards, various different ways of visualizing the information. And this can happen through different types of data modeling techniques. Some of it could be statistical analysis, some of it could be just basic asset performance management strategy maps, or it could be operational reports, it could be ad hoc reporting. So one has to think it from a variety of things, and there is not a single way of doing, just doing scorecard will do asset performance. But in the framework, it is important that you have the ability to do variety of things. So depending on how the organization structure is, the level of the people that are going to interact with this information, one can adopt to the framework. But essentially the framework has to kind of have the goal in the as business goal as the primary driver, and all the information that is related to that achieving that business goal, all the strategies in execution of the strategy, and all the things that are required to execute that strategy related to activities or any kind of work that is carried out needs to be monitored. The way the work is carried out, that needs to be monitored, as well as the impact and the outcome of those activities need to be monitored too. So there could be some leading indicators, and then there will be some lagging indicators will really tell us the outcome of all the activities that are performed. So once you do that, it's really essentially we are trying to monitor the performance by way of this framework. And we all revise goals, we will all revise our strategies, and this cycle will continue. You might retire some of the KPIs, you might have, once you improve areas, you might go to the next area, and this cycle continues. Before we go any further on questions, and I have.
Yeah. How will you rate importance of displaying KPIs on the shop floor monitors? Very important, good to have, not important. Yeah, so we have the results here. 53% say very important, 40% say is good to have, only 7% say it's not important.
Okay, good. One of the things we have seen is really building or setting a framework for KPIs can be a very tricky situation. And it all really depends on the organization, the type of business one is in, and the complexity of operations, sophistication of thinking, maturity, all that. So there is a lot of things that needs to be considered. But one of the important aspects is really how do you communicate? And so displaying the KPIs may be one of the ways of bringing that information right across in the hallways, in cafeteria, in the wherever the work areas is. So you kind of remind people, that these are the goals and this is the way we are performing. And of course, it has to be interspersed with some other content. But the idea is to, many times they don't know what they don't know. They don't know how data is being used to monitor performance. Having the objective clearly defined and linked to the overall corporate goal is very important. So this is one of the foundation of building a right framework, where the goals are taken into account, whether it is just doing maintenance for sake of maintenance is one activity, but most of the time this has to be linked with your constrained asset, whether you do criticality analysis or some other ways you identify these important assets. Maybe you have a different strategy for managing those assets compared to non-critical assets. So the framework has to kind of take into account the corporate goals. The idea is to measure the gaps so that there is a way you can actually influence a behavior that can help in achieving the goals. And the KPIs need to remove noise. This is an interesting where we have too much data. There is too much information. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, and correlating this data can be a very big task, and people spend too much time in building all that, and trying to decipher that information can be a very, very time consuming. So it's very important to remove all the noise and just focus on what one should be focusing on. And then try to get incremental value so that it kind of helps on a day-to-day activities as well. If you are going to build a framework which is going to be across the organization, then it's important that it is comprehensive, consistent, and easy to understand. Easy to understand is easier said than done, because many a times the KPIs themselves may be self-explanatory in some cases, but in some cases it may not, and the way the business conditions are actually managed in that calculations need to be clarified, so they understand how their day-to-day activities really impact the leading as well as lagging indicators. We have seen there is no magic formula. We have seen anywhere between 3 to 6 KPIs. In some companies, they will have 5 to 6 KPIs is really what they want everybody to focus on, or whatever the function that they are performing or they are responsible for, they may assign 5 or 6. And some of these KPIs, as said earlier, can be retired, and you may add a new KPI once you are good with that, or you have made all the necessary improvements. So it's an evolving process. It will evolve over a period of time, and as you mature, your level of and the type of KPIs can change. But by and large, it is good to have limited number of KPIs to focus on for that particular function or the individual that is responsible for that. It will help in the way it needs to be done is to really the workforce should be engaged when it is actually implemented, so that everybody understands their activities are how they actually impact the KPI that is directly associated with their activities, as well as all the KPIs that will actually impact the business outcome. And some of these things need to be kind of explained in some cases, so they know that how their individual activity can be really impacting the results that company is looking for. And once you find some deficiencies in the KPI itself, there might be deficiency, not really in the result. That's another equation. But so you may have to adjust the KPI, but those timely adjustments in the way you compute the KPI and the importance that you give to the KPI needs to be. So essentially, you cannot just say that we define this and then maybe I use for the next 5 years. There may be some variations that you might have to do. And the whole idea is to not so much to find bad actors, but it's more to do with also, applaud the improvements that somebody makes, and which really that's where displaying the results can work both ways. It will remind people as well as it will help in kind of rewarding their efforts. In some KPIs, the last two can be controversial, but really, essentially, we are trying to influence behavior, right behavior of the workforce. In that case, it is very important that you understand the KPIs, how you can actually define it in such a way that you don't have to physically do micromanagement, or you're not really doing micromanagement, but you are ensuring that the little things are taken care of, so that the operations happen the way one is intending to happen. And in the last thing is really the KPIs need to be in such a way that it creates a catch-all net where some exceptions are managed like that. Okay, sorry about that. Virus software. All right. Okay, so how do you go about doing that? I think, as discussed earlier, understand the challenges, improvement opportunities, the goals, prioritize them, build the framework, and then really determine all the KPIs. And the important thing is also in the overall framework, it has to be in such a way the analytics framework should support these KPIs, where one should have the ability to do deep dive, ad hoc type of analysis if one finds problem with the KPI or the results that it is showing, so that people start trusting this the data that they are getting. And then once you do that, ensure the data quality is good. develop it, implement, and some of these things will evolve. It'll continue to. You might start with one subject matter, and then you might move to the different functions, like that. So it can be a gradual process also in some companies based on the culture, or it can be a big bang type of effort where you implement at one shot and just kind of drive change like that. Most of this is related to driving change in the organization. So once if you do that, hopefully as discussed earlier, you can move from reactive maintenance to more proactive maintenance, and you might have some other predictive maintenance type of initiatives. You can actually really move to maintenance optimization. So some companies will evolve over a period of time. So before we go to question answer session, let's share some of the examples that we have seen other. So this is a very simple example. At a very high level, there are only 3 goals: reduce asset downtime, minimize labor cost, reduce health and safety related risk. So once those are 3 simple goals defined, then there may be strategic KPIs below that level, and then for each one of those strategic, then there is operational KPIs, which really this is where our work will focus on. The third layer is, in this particular example, the third layer is where our actions are, and then the other might be considered as a lagging indicators, where all these actions will really influence the outcome. So some of these, this can be considered as a very simple, maybe 6 months, 12 months type of period where you might monitor these things. Once you improve, maybe you will move on to something else. At a corporate level also, there are different initiatives, like you could have a balanced scorecard type of approach. In this case, there are multiple levels. In this case, it is there are 4 levels. We have the financial goals, obviously, and then the perspective of in case of maintenance, our production, and the other people will be our internal customers. So you might have some KPIs related to that, and really process improvement that one is looking for, and all the organization's preparedness. So there are different ways one can actually set this up. Again, this is an example. This may has maybe 30 or so KPIs, but really essentially the function that one is responsible for may have only 4 or 5 or 6 KPIs. Really, that's all they are actually going to be measured, and their actions hopefully are linked in such a way that it leads to the desired result that you are looking for. Another example, this was for some pharma company. Again, their whole goal was the improvement in the process that they were looking for, or the products that they wanted reliable and compliant GMP related production facility. So so people can really define it. So this is again another example how you can really build the tree structure which can help your business goals. In some cases, this is a kind of a different structure where it may be a little complex. That maybe 2-3 things are interdependent, and so this is an example where it is a reliability related initiative. This is a reliability related KPI framework where all these KPIs are related. One is related to another KPI, and it's kind of a mesh. So it's a spaghetti type of arrangement. So this can be a little bit more complex, but this may be helpful in cases where there is something that for the entire group one is trying to measure, and there is a lot of interrelationship between all these different players. So essentially, this can be considered as a more complex type of example. But in most organizations, it will probably a simplistic way of looking at it, because if you try to make too complex, it may be difficult to actually implement. once you define it, there are many ways you can actually look at it. This is again just one single way. You can actually compare two different level of organizations, maybe plant 1, plant 2, and then have a way to present it in front of to the end user that how they stack up against other plants, etc. So this is just another example. These are just, but all these KPIs actually in turn can be linked to a report like these. So this is an example where this might be at a very high level of plant manager type of dashboard. So what we saw earlier was one way of looking at it. Maybe this is another way where you can actually see the trends and things like that. So this is 6 months. It's monitored all the production target versus output. Now, of course, maintenance is not directly responsible for these targets because they are just one of the players. There are a lot of other factors which can influence the productivity itself. But nevertheless, it's a good idea to really get a sense of whether there is a correlationship of maintenance performance with the production's performance itself. So in some cases, it will indicate whether there is a direct impact or there is a direct correlationship or not. In this case, we are also looking at quality, which is part of in the OEE. This was split into different ways. The availability was measured separately, quality was measured, the throughput was measured, and really the throughput is in many organizations is as important or more important than just the performance of a single asset, or performance of a group of assets, because most of the time these are business decisions, these drive the actual business, and you may like to see this in the light of the big picture is whether are there any incidents related to EHS or any other safety environment related issues so maintenance may be directly responsible or may not be directly responsible for safety related issues. So it really depends on but this is an example where you may monitor these just 6 KPIs in this case. So this might be for a plant manager to look at it. If he finds a problem, it's not trending right, maybe then he can drill it down further and kind of have the ability to go to whatever subject area that he's looking for. Another example could be related to, again, this is maybe for the maintenance manager. He's looking at just planning compliance, so some of the KPIs. And the presentation may vary from customer to customer, but essentially he can focus on maybe these 8 areas that might be of more importance to them. And these examples are, we are trying to limit only few KPIs, and some may be directly related to their work, but others are more how it impacts the organization. In a little bit more broader sense, one can actually look at this type of KPI where there are multiple, this is a dashboard type of KPI where, or monitoring where you really monitor almost 16, 17 different KPIs. And these are different areas. So this is asset availability, so mostly lagging indicators. And this is typically the management part of maintenance. So how is your planning effectiveness? How is your planning compliance? How much is CM versus other work orders, or your PM work order compliance, etc. So this can really help you understand or get a little bit bigger picture and understand how you overall organization is doing. In this case, it is also showing you some cost-related analysis and also some spare parts-related analysis. So the bottom part is really more to do with the financials, so to speak. So again, this is another view where people can look at how the overall performance from here. And in this case, this may be a very, this has a lot of series of KPIs and put into one big scorecard. And this may be too much for, this is an example, maybe may not be the right way to present it. One can have access to this type of analysis, but it may not be the best way to highlight a problem. So the purpose of showing here is, these are all great KPIs. They cover a lot of different functional areas, but maybe just too much information for somebody to take any action on. So one has to really balance the different ways you want people to utilize the information. All these KPIs can be justified as the very good KPIs to follow, but it may not be easy to work with. This is another, and I'd say seeing a non-visual type of KPI versus visual KPI, visual way of looking at it is really a lot more easier for people to consume and people to actually act on it than just series of numbers or tables that one can present. So in the last few years, there has been a lot of improvement in the way data can be visualized. There is a lot of interactivity is possible. So again, some of these techniques needs to be used. Essentially, there are too many variables here. So one needs to figure out how we can simplify a KPI. So it's very easy to understand, very easy to relate to, and once you do that, it needs to be standardized, and then it needs to be automated to whatever degree possible. Many things, some of these things in some organizations, people may create it in Excel and print it. So that's one way of doing it, but it may not be the most efficient way of doing it. So there is a time and place for certain type of KPI, certain type of measurements to be automated as much as possible, so that the maintenance managers or maintenance analysts spend more time in taking decisions and actually doing some action rather than collecting data and compiling, collating, and trying to build a KPI. So there are different cultural changes that may have to happen in order to create that type of environment. This is another example where you have the table as well as you have a graph. So there is a visual type of presentation that goes with the data also. Again, and maybe you focus on here. They are just monitoring work order count. Maybe downtime is one thing they would like to monitor. The labor hours that are spent. In most cases, in the maintenance budget, the personnel cost is one of the highest cost apart from material cost. So some people just would like to understand the hours and the cost. Again, it can be split. So there are, in this case, the availability, the failures, they are measuring by measuring MTBF. So we talked about OEE earlier. You can do at a system level, you can do it at a line or a plant level, or you can do it at an equipment level. So you have really multiple options, and you may not have all the data available for each one of the piece of equipment, but whatever is crucial and important, one needs to figure out whether that can be used in any form. So OEE is something we have seen components of it. It's very difficult to get all the right information, but if you get it, it can be very useful. This is another example where somebody can look at a very high level, and this may sound like any other report, but really, if you bring it down, it can be done for a class of equipment, or it can be done for a particular group or a plant, and really drive like this. So it gives you an example where one can actually click here and go to that generator and look at the motor in this case, and go to the individual motor. So the ability to drill down can be very, very helpful. So you can actually pinpoint where the issue is. Another example could be a lot of color coding can be done. In this case, colors are used to indicate different statuses, and that really helps elevate certain problems and certain issues associated with. In this case, red is, the compliance. There are too many corrective work orders, and hence they would like to highlight it. So there are different techniques one can use, and the idea is to really highlight a problem so that people can take action, people react to that particular. This is not same as reactive maintenance, but it's more for people to take some actions on the work that they are performing. All right. So I think we have, this is another way of presenting. Here it is what is considered as a different type of assets and operating hours on it, and it is measuring 4 different elements like total cost, time between failure, and mean time to repair, and number of failures. And the idea is, again, visually we are trying to find anomalies here. So the red color obviously is not a, and the size of the box here is really the operating hours. So anything which is not right, you have a low operating hours and very high level of cost or downtime, maybe then you need to focus on those areas more than the other areas. So some of these things can, when you have a similar type of large number of assets, then it becomes easier to really get to that information and look at it 4 different parameters together. So you can actually look at it, okay, so I have a downtime and it is also leading too many number of failures, and but I have low operating hours on this. So some of these visualization techniques can be very helpful. Another thing we have seen is ranking. Is another areas by which it can really elevate the problem assets, areas where you need attention. And we talked about scorecard. This is balanced scorecard methodology where somebody is looking at maintenance efforts from that angle also. I think we saw earlier example also. So at this stage, Nilesh, I would like to open this for questions.
Sure. I'll request audience to please post the questions on the chat window. Though already we have a lot many questions, I'll start with the number 1 question, which is, are there any KPIs regarding the quality of data that is in the CMMS?
Actually, there is a short answer is yes. There are KPIs that can be defined that can actually help you understand your data quality. Now, if you really look at the data quality issues in terms of accuracy, completeness, consistency, some of these things can be easily addressed. Like consistency part can be easily addressed. Now, accuracy, there may be a KPI that may be not easy to build from the accuracy part, but we have seen organizations build certain processes in the workflow. Like once the work order is closed, it is actually it's completed, and before closing, they may have a quality check on all the data. So maybe in that case, that is not a KPI, but you can actually monitor how many work orders needed to the data was not correct. So maybe that's one way to measure whether the data is was not inputted in a correct way. So there are many options there. So there are some KPIs can directly address certain things, but in some cases one has to devise it.
Awesome. Sunil, there is another question from one of our attendees. Is asking how to track proactive work in Maximo using a design work type on work order or checking for CM's work order created from a PDM work order.
Right. In case of Maximo, maybe the way it is tagged, these work orders, there may be, I think there is a parent work order that can be tagged with the children work order. Or in some companies, they have tagged it as another work order type. So there are primarily these options where you can actually, so essentially you are tagging a work order that gets generated from other predictive maintenance efforts, whether it could be oil analysis, or it could be any other machine generated data that in turn creates a work order within Maximo. You can actually tag them, and once you tag that, it will help you lead. So actually there could be multiple different PDM programs companies might have. They may have vibration analysis, oil analysis, there could be infrared type of, so each one of these PDMs can actually create these, or just simple inspection program can create PDM. So one needs to tag them, and the tagging can be done either as a children work order, or you can have a separate custom field to tag them as well.
Okay. There is another question, Sunil. How can we improve downtime from equipment?
That is, I don't think it's just the analysis is the only. Analysis can help it to identify the root cause of failure along with the engineering team on the maintenance team, but just just by data analysis we cannot stop downtime, but it needs to be worked with the engineering group. But data analysis can assist the maintenance and engineering group to identify the root cause. And in some cases, the FMEA is carried out, and so there is some sort of work that is done to monitor the failures or the type of failures and the failure codes, and then identify where one can improve the performance of the asset themselves and make it more reliable. So it's really a reliability type of issue in that case to improve, to reduce the downtime.
Hey, thank you, Sunil. There are many questions. One last question, I think there are many questions. We can answer them later on. One question, there is one audience asking, we are now setting up a reliability section here. What reliability program do you advise we use, and what areas do we focus on?
There are, depending on the type of business, this can be addressed offline, but depending on the different, the type of business, and there are, in the reliability program, there are so many different options that are available now. As I mentioned, whether it's alignment, vibration, infrared, thermography, or there could be ultrasound. So different type of options are there. So depending on the type of pieces of equipment that somebody is trying to implement on, so some of these options will vary. And then all these also have to work in close conjunction with all the other methodology that they may be working on, whether it's TPM, whether it's RCM, or any other thing that they may have. So, so there is no hard and fast one formula for such a thing. I think it needs to be worked with a lot of, one needs to take a lot of things into consideration.
One last question, Sunil. Can we have a KPI for failure class?
Yes. And that essentially will tell you for a particular class, whether you are getting repeated problems or repeated failures because of a certain type of failures. And that could be the purpose of monitoring something like that.
Okay. We are done with the questions, Sunil. Thank you very much for the insightful session. We request audience to please mail us the queries, and if you want to have a demo, please ask us, contact our representatives to have a demo, and we hope to see you soon in our next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you all.